Good morning and happy Mother's Day to all of the beautiful mothers, that work hard all day, every day, even if they have um, small children or grown children, of course. I have grown children at this point. I got one that's getting ready to turn 26, and I got one that's 23. Okay, I be forgetting their ages, okay? Charge it to my head and not my heart. That's what they do, okay? Because I be forgetting their names. I'll call one the other name sometimes. Okay, but happy Mother's Day. Even to those that have not had children but have played as a mother, been a motherly role to a child that needed it, whether it's nieces and nephews or godchildren, adopted children, or whatever. Right? Happy Mother's Day, and I wish you the best Mother's Day, right? Because it is a 24-hour job from the time you give birth all the way until your expiration date on this side of the earth, right? I wanted to get on for a few minutes. I was just looking at a video. I was looking at a video, and this is a case that I've always been interested in for a very, very long time, as I was interested in McKinley Phelps Max case. If you go back and look at my videos from, I want to pull it up. Maybe it's like 7 years ago. I did a show on McKinley Phelps. And I'm going to tell y'all something. It was meant for me. When I first started doing my TV show on Comcast, it was meant for me to talk about McKinley Phelps, because I remember I wanted my show to be centered. And this is a short story. I wanted my show to be centered around injustices and domestic violence and missing children. For the most part, it did do that. I did that for about 7-8 years straight and got burned out. Okay. But I can remember when I said that I wanted to do like a show on Mac. And I was like, how am I going to get in contact with him and his family and all of that? And I remember sitting on Facebook one night. I was sitting on Facebook one night, and his family started doing a campaign. It says Free McKinley Mac Phelps. And I felt like, because I had been thinking about it heavily around that time, that's my sign, that's my cue. And I ended up reaching out to his mother. I found an email address on his mom. And it took her a minute to get back in contact with me, because she had gotten a new email address. And I was like, okay, well, this is how you can reach out to him. And I actually reached out to him, to my surprise, one day when I was leaving work at the sheriff's office. I got into my car and I was receiving my phone was ringing. Okay. And just as I was getting ready to answer my phone, it had already hung up, right? So that night, I get a call, and it was him, right? It was Matt. And we ended up having a conversation. His phone kept hanging up, kept calling back. It was just he had a piece. He was like, yeah, this is McKinley Mac. You had reached out to me, and you're interested in interviewing me. I would love to do it. And then, like, shortly after that, he didn't even tell his mother, right? His mother saw the old email, went into her email and found it. And his family and I has been like tight ever since. Me, his mother, his sister, his cousins, his aunties. Like, I've gone, his grandmother, they live on General Taylor, right? I've gone and visited them. I was talking to his aunt. Me and his aunt talk all the time, right? I was just talking to her the other night, and we're talking about visiting each other. But I ended up doing a show on him, and I ended up bringing in Judge Joe Brown, the TV judge, and he is considered one of the best defense attorneys, one of the top 10 defense attorneys in the U.S. Leslie Ballin. He happens to live in Memphis. He helped to get the West Memphis 3 off, which we know they did it, and he got Mary Winkler, or whatever her name is, and quite a few other guys off, right? That's the reason why I say those are the that are considered um high profile attorneys, right? And what we learned is, and what I learned in just doing research, is that how crooked the system is down there in Louisiana. How they have, if I had to guess, and I know everybody that say they're innocent is not, because everybody say they are innocent. Okay, you go to every man in jail, you ask them what they did, and they gonna say nothing. Okay, but so what I found was they were just extorting and putting people in jail, and probably 30% of the men that's in jail in Louisiana, and maybe a higher percentage was set up, right? I don't think there was any reversals of when back in the 90s, when the police, the New Orleans police was messing people over. Y'all know that was all over the TV and stuff. Corruption in New Orleans police, they was killing people. And I think that it was so corrupt around that time, because I think they was topping out. There was a murder capital, and it was topping out at like $12, $13 an hour, right? Corruption in New Orleans Police Department. I think that was like in 95 or earlier. Okay. I'm trying to pull it up. Y'all know I am trying to talk and think at the same time. Okay. Corruption. I'm trying to see when exactly, because that was Lynn Davis and all of them. I'm sure it had been happening before then, because you had a lot of guys, that was selling drugs, that was saying, "Hey, listen, yeah, we sell drugs, but we were going to jail for, we didn't even have drugs at that time. They was booking us for stuff we didn't even do." You know what I mean? So, anyways. cmurder is one of the ones that has of course, he went to jail for Mr. Thomas. Okay. The young man was 16 years old at the time, and rest in peace to him. I hate that happened to the young man. And of course, cmurder was arrested, and then Judge Martha Sassoon saw that there was some corruption, okay, and she actually reversed it. And then what they did was they gave him another trial because it was determined, and they convicted him again. And then when her election came up again, they actually did not re-elect her, okay. Mr. Thomas's family has started to speak out now quite a bit, and hey, I'm not mad at them. I think they got every right to do it. I was looking at Terrence Gangster Williams' show. He's from out of New Orleans, and he was talking. He had the young man on, and so I can understand, and I can have empathy for them, because they lost Stephen Thomas at 16 years old. Okay. But the thing about it is, an injustice for one person is an injustice. An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. Let's just say that. And hey, I'm sure cmurder had his faults or whatever, because we all do. None of us are perfect. I was listening to the young man say that he had been on the other side of the system, Stephen Thomas's brother, okay, that he had been on the other side of the system, and now he himself is a civilian. I'm glad he had turned his life around. I guess now he wants to tell his brother's story, which I don't have any issues with, but that's his brother. He was talking about his parents and stuff are old, and Master P had apologized to them. And to me, Master P apologizing to them is not saying that his brother is guilty, because Master P has always said that his brother was not guilty, and he knew that his brother was not guilty. His brother was guilty of being around, keeping the wrong company. Okay. I think he has said that quite a bit, that he was guilty of keeping the wrong company. But my thing is, you know, you had Harry Lee, and I actually just kind of scratched the surface on that. And hey, I found a lot of corruption. Is one thing when you talk about it, you hear people talk about it. It's another thing when you start to dig into it, and just scratching the surface barely, I was able to tap into a lot of things that Harry Lee was doing. He was not even elected. He was put into office by the governor. I do believe, was it the governor? He was in with the governor. Yeah. And they were doing corrupt things, right? And Harry Lee kind of carried on the corruption that had been going on, and he had a hard on for cmurder, right? And you have to think about even what happened with McKinley, Master P. At that time, it came up, and his artists were coming up, and they was making money, and they wanted to extort him. This is not something I'm pulling out of my butt. Mac's mother, who I talked to very often, had told me about a story that had actually happened in the parish that Mac was in. And Mac had even said himself, if you go and look at my show when I interviewed him, that they came and got him from his home after he performed, right? And they asked, is this Master P? And Mac said no. And they said, one of his artists, and they said, hey, that's close enough, right? Smiled and said, that's close enough. Shortly after, it was the prosecutor, the DA, who has since, he's in jail now for a lot of corruption that in the parish that Mac was prosecuting in. The sheriff and the bail bond, who were related, who had tried to extort Master P at the time as it relates to McKinley. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure the same thing. Hey, it was probably uniform. All those parishes are in cahoots with each other. You have to think about, although they're different, they're all like in close proximity, whether it's in Baton Rouge, the sheriff in Baton Rouge, the sheriff in some part of Jefferson County or whatever. All of these sheriffs have to go to I forget what it's called, the name of those seminars that they have to go to for their training and stuff all over the world. So you know that if they're coming from Memphis, the Shelby County area, from all over the world, they have to meet up to get this training. Then you already know that the sheriffs in close proximity in the state of Louisiana would all have some type of familiarity with each other, right? And so I think about Mr. Thomas's brother, and hey, you know, my heart goes out to his family. But you know, I could tell that Mr. Thomas's brother understands that cmurder, you know, I don't know if he believed, just from listening to him, I don't necessarily think that he believes, or I believe he knows that cmurder didn't do this, but the mere fact that cmurder would not say who did it, he feels like that cmurder should be punished. Now, cmurder has already been in jail. We know Louisiana system is so corrupt. They still operate on those old French laws that even after you are convicted, even if more evidence come up, there's found that there's corruption, your conviction could never be overturned. Okay, Mac did 21 years for a murder that they know that he did not commit. Okay, and I want to hold on. I want to get into, because this is the show that I did. This was like 7 years ago. Okay, McKinley had called in. We had mother and father to come in from Louisiana. I mean, I was consistently getting information. So even when I started out doing that particular show, okay, I ended up getting Judge Joe Brown and them to come in. Okay, this was from 7 years ago. Mac's mother and father came in from out of New Orleans. They came up there. Judge Joe Brown agreed to come over. It's funny because you have a judge who sat on the bench, a criminal judge who actually did research when I called him and said, well, I want to know, send me everything you got. I want to just look at this. started making calls in Louisiana. And when he got there and said the young man, Mac, was set up, okay? He says, you know, I've never known anyone, a rapper who was on stage and a shooting breakout. He's up there rapping to be able to rap and shoot at the same time. So then he says, you know, and the young man who was Mac's, who was his security, which was his auntie's husband at the time, came forward and said, listen, I fear for my life. The man came at me with a bottle and I shot him because I was in pandemonium. I was in panic. This man was threatened. They tried to throw out what he said, and they still, because they wanted to extort Master P because Mac was one of his rappers. They threatened other people who came forward and said Mac didn't do it. They started messing with their children. This is the type of stuff that we're dealing with, right? And they made that man do 21 years, okay? So then I got Leslie Ballin, one of the top 10 attorneys in the country, defense attorneys, to come in. Okay, this is Leslie right here, me talking with Mac's mother, and you can see at the time Mac's mother, if you look at her face, she was sad because Leslie was talking about how stringent, how horrible the Louisiana laws were. Hey, I never trusted an attorney in Louisiana because they are in bed with not a defense attorney. Okay, a lot of them are too in bed with the prosecutors and the judges and the DAs. Okay, so if you have a high profile case, hey, they don't want to have issues. They want to win in the courtroom. If the judge is in cahoots, hey, they don't want the judge to give them a hard time. They don't want to mess up their career. Right. And so Leslie Ballin, okay, world-renowned attorney, calls one of the attorneys that was working on McKinley's case at the time, and he completely wants to shut him down, even though this is an attorney that could have helped, okay, who had the clout, who had the experience, and who had the team, right? They completely wanted to shut him out. And all Leslie could do was just shake his head and say, hell, I wouldn't even know who to trust. You know, in Louisiana, I wouldn't even want to work with a defense attorney in Louisiana. Okay. It's a lot of stuff that went on in that case. And so they end up, I end up talking to McKinley. He called back in like 2 weeks later because, you know, hey, I took taking my extensions out and cut all my hair off and everything. So that's why you see me looking different on there. Okay. But he was very transparent, right? So you got a man who was at the peak of his career, okay, that they take and try to extort the bonding company. According to his mother, they wanted Master P at that time, $250,000 was a lot of money. Come up with $250,000, right? And so I think it's unfortunate, but I'm going back to cmurder, okay? Cmurder, just from scratching the surface, everyone knows that. I think another young man had come forward later on and confessed to Mr. Thomas's murder. I believe that Mr. Thomas's family know, but they want to keep cmurder in jail to punish him because he did not come forward at the time. Mr. Thomas's brother, who had been on the other side of the law, I'm not saying that it's right, but I know he got to understand, right? And it seems to me that they want to keep him in. I see they got a lawsuit, and hey, I think that anybody should be compensated, right? But it's like, say that you're sorry, admit to this, because even though you were not directly involved, these were your people. If you admit to it and pay us, then hey, if you ever go up for whatever, I don't even know if he can get parole. Hey, then we'll back up off of you. I think Mr. Thomas's brother and family Even, you know, Mr. Thomas is, hey, I hate what happened to him. I wish that, you know, cmurder, but he know the codes of the street. I don't understand it because I'm not in the street. But it is an injustice to want a man to stay in jail, because I think he's been there all of 20 years just because he didn't tell on his friends, especially if you've been out in the streets. And hey, I don't understand that street code, okay? But we all know, right, that when you are in the streets, that's how it is, right? So I think Mr. Thomas's family should rethink that and have some empathy as it relates to cmurder, because we already know that Harry Lee had it out for cmurder. We already know that even Judge Martha Sassoon saw the corruption and was bold enough to step up and put her own job on the line, and she was not reelected because she refused to keep a man in jail, right, that did not do this, because Sheriff Harry Lee, he dead and rotten somewhere now, okay, has said, if it's the last thing that I do, I'm going to get him. And that's what they did. Okay. So I think that Mr. Thomas's family, rest in peace to Mr. Thomas. My heart goes out to them, but they should do the right thing. Okay. Because it could easily be, if they're still living in Louisiana, it could easily be one of their family members. Hey, I'm not saying that everything that cmurder did was right, but we already know he didn't pull that trigger. Okay. So it is better to let 10 guilty men go free. That's what they teach us even in the academy, than to convict one innocent man and mess his life up. Okay. Hey, he didn't tell. I think he's paid. He's been in there long enough to pay. But I think they need to rethink that, because, hey, it's still free cmurder because he didn't do it. Okay. And that's not being disrespectful to the family. That's standing up and saying, hey, it ain't right. Let that man go. At this point, the system is holding this man because they was mad at his brother. They was mad at them young men down there getting money. Okay. And they couldn't get none of it. It's almost like God said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh, let my people go. Let that man go. See, we need to be standing up for this. Let him go. Okay, he didn't tell on his friends. He served about 20 years. Hey, he's paid his dues for not doing that. Let him go. He's destitute. He ain't got no money. Mr. Thomas's family, Mr. Thomas's brother, he ain't got it. So he don't have money to pay your family. Let him go. If you let him out, he'll be able to make some money. And hey, even though he didn't do it just for not speaking up, maybe your family can get the money then. But hey, I think it is time for this man to be let go, because I could tell they know that he did not pull the trigger. Okay, he didn't do it. And so I think we need to think about stuff like that. And I know folks say, well, it ain't your family member. You know, it's not my family member. You're right. But this stuff has got to stop. You know, they've tricked the people so much. They had a video of cmurder on video. They had cmurder on video pointing a gun at somebody at a club. That was not Mr. Thomas's case. That's why I said, I mean, everybody has done. He didn't shoot nobody. That was a completely different case, and they was able, I believe, to trick the jury with that. That is a total injustice. Okay. But anyways, I saw that on Terrence's show, and I want to address that, because that's one of those cases. Hey, that I wish somebody would reopen. It's going to take, the New Orleans system is so corrupt. They don't want to get a lawsuit. They owe that man. But I think he was in Jefferson Parish. So I think what's going to happen, I do agree with Gangster on, you know, what you have to do is you have to get close to the governors, because he can pardon him. But you also have to get you some good investigators that is not a part of that Louisiana system, but know it. And then once you get the evidence you need, go get you an attorney that can practice in Louisiana, but does not live or practice in Louisiana, but can that has licenses. That's the only way this stuff is going to be turned around. But hey, rest in peace to Mr. Thomas. And, you know, my heart goes out to his family and all of that. But I cannot campaign for a guilty man. I mean, an innocent man to consistently stay in jail. And this ain't being fanned out, because I'm not. I'd be too tired to be fanned out. Okay. There needs to be some justice. Okay. And I think what has happened, keeping cmurder in jail for this, it has been a travesty of justice for Mr. Thomas and his family. And I think they need to go after the system for that. Okay. Well, anyways, I want you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to support the channel, you could definitely support the channel via Cash App.